The best mechanism is still ourselves.
Why harp on something when it's not available?
It's because of greed.
Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Headlines. My name is Amalina Kamal.
And I am Hasbin Hassan.
And this is the go-to space for the top stories that made the headlines and more. Now today, in this episode, we are going to delve into the pressing issues that has gripped the nation, beginning with a recent cyber attack on the National Population and Family Development Board, LPPKN's database by a hacker group known as Rootkit. Now this group is a group that is also suspected to be targeting Muslim countries, according to the cybersecurity company Kaspersky.
And in the second half of this episode, we will feature interviews in relation to Malaysia's rice supply, particularly after gaining much attention after the introduction of the Malaysia Madani white rice concept. And so for that, we have a lineup of experts and industry leaders ready to share their insights. So Amalina, let's go ahead and introduce our guests for the first segment.
Yes. On our set today, we have Izwan Ismail, New Straits Times Associate Editor for Life and Times. He will help us in sharing more about the breaking news report that he had with Kaspersky. So Izwan, welcome to Beyond the Headlines.
Thank you, Amalina.
Right. Also, in addressing the rising sophistication of cyber attacks and how they impact businesses and government agencies, we have the Deputy President of Malaysia Cyber Consumer Association, MCCA, Azrul Zafri. Welcome, Azrul.
Thank you, Amalina.
Right. Okay, we want to dive straight into the discussion, right? Izwan, maybe you can take us through your report. How did Kaspersky came about in sharing with you this information about Rootkit?
Okay, last week, as we all know, the LPPKN was hacked by this hacker group called Rootkit, which initially was thought the attack was done on the Padu database, but it was later clarified by Minister Rafizi that the attack was actually occurred on the LPPKN database. So about 27 terabytes of data were hacked, and Rootkit was not an organization that wants profit, but they just want recognition from the government saying that they have successful attack the government website.
So meaning they've breached the firewall of sorts,
Yes.
But there were no extraction in terms of important data. So we're not too sure about that.
So far, there hasn't been any report on what kind of data that were hacked and what they actually wanted to do with those data.
This is not the first time our government agencies have been hacked. A couple of months back, our SOCSO also experienced a data breach. Hence, I would like to just relay this question across to MCCA. Like, in light of this particular potential threat posed by Rootkit and other hacker groups, what sort of security measures should our existing agencies, or at least bodies of authority, must take into consideration to prevent future cyber attacks?
Okay, when we talk about preventing, first of all, we need to understand the motive and also why currently our country particularly has been in the highlight to this hackers group, right? So for me to prevent such activities, organization must have a very good governance in managing their data, their servers and their applications, especially if the application is being used widely by the people, right? The technology that being used by this organization to protect the data, the servers and the application must be always up to date. For example, today we are talking about AI. Not only us who is using AI currently, the hackers also is using that AI technology to do their activities, to perform their hacking activities. So we need to be very updated, and also the awareness among the organization employees, for example, need to be up to date as well. So the campaign among the employees especially needs to be very carefully and continually done by the organization.
Okay, surely the team that is supposed to ensure this sort of cybersecurity measures are up, up and running,
Yeah.
is skilled enough to understand this.
Yeah.
They wouldn't need a PSA campaign as opposed to how normal consumers would need to be made aware
Yeah.
of, right?
Yeah, the team who is taking care of the system is another thing, but the users within the organization also need to be aware.
For instance, maybe you can.
For example, a company like banking industry.
Okay.
A company like can I mention some bank?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. For example, Maybank.
any-
They have 30,000 of employees across the countries. So these 30,000 of employees at the bank, actually the users of the systems within the bank that holding the data, the customers' data. The Maybank, for example, or any banks lah, they have millions of customers. So being managed by the 30,000 of employees. So if you are part of organization like bank, telecommunication companies, you would see that the cybersecurity team is always do campaign among the employees on what is the best practices among the employees to handle any kind of system within the organization.
You're talking about like malwares and stuff.
Malware, phishing, and how to handle passwords. Those small and simple things that we didn't really paid attention before. Nowadays, we need to be extra careful.
In relation to telecommunication companies, pula, I suppose the concept of your data is being shared. A lot of the center of it all sometimes are telecommunication companies can. In terms of their responses in adapting to the cyber attacks, do you think it's robust enough? Are they already at this level whereby they understand that in this age, any sort of data breach is a no-go?
Well, it should be. it should be. They should be fast in responding. Yeah, because in telco, I think they would have their own internal response team to the any kind of incidents related to the cybersecurity. So the response team must be fast, and then they need to communicate to all the stakeholders, including the customers. Yeah, and then they need to apply some patches or solution on how to overcome those attacks, and they need to monitor after that. So the team that handling the cybersecurity within the telco needs to be very good at their work. I know that sometimes, not sometimes, I think every telco company they outsource the cybersecurity team to other company to take care of their cybersecurity. So in addition to that, I think every organization, especially government agencies, need to hire a very good vendor, a very up to date with the latest technology kind of vendors to take care of the system, especially if the system involving the public database.
And existingly, do you know like how many vendors out there do we have, and are they able to cover all industries across the board here? Because again, we're living in digital age, and the industries that apply digital mechanism in terms of their operations is not just focused on tech companies, right? We've got even companies like traditionally are print. We also use online and digital services. Again, the question of our cybersecurity teams out there that companies can employ. Is there enough vendors out there?
I've read a report saying that in Malaysia there is not enough resources locally in cybersecurity. That's what I've read. I can't remember the details and the figures lah, but that's what I've read before. But when you are talking about digital and especially cybersecurity, I think we cannot limit ourselves just within the Malaysia. If you want to have a cybersecurity company to take care of your organization, you should look outside also. Yeah, for example, like a company like France. Italy, they have a very good. They have many companies in cybersecurity that provide good services with high skill cybersecurity measures and best practices. I think we can look outside as well, and as a country, I think we can look at the option of work together with other players, cybersecurity players from outside Malaysia as well, especially from the developed country.
Right. And working together with outside players here, I mean, this is why, or this is one of the reasons why Kaspersky is in this particular discussion and at the forefront of, sharing this particular rootkit hacker group, penetrating national security. Izwan, I just want to ask this because I understand that this interview came about because Kaspersky had a conference here in Malaysia. Can you share that more with our audience?
Okay. Last week, Kaspersky's early of the week conducted a conference on the latest threats and technology used by hackers, not just for countries in the Southeast Asia region, but also Middle East and other parts of the world. So what they reveal is that hackers are now getting more advanced using artificial intelligence, generative AI, to help them break into the defenses of government's database, which are already happening. Okay.
I mean, were there information of these hacker groups being funded by certain government bodies or certain private entities? Did they share that sort of information with you as well?
They didn't share about that, but this group of hackers normally have certain motives. They are not just for money, but when they attack the government, normally is to weaken to show that this government has some loopholes in their database or cybersecurity defenses, and they want the government to acknowledge that their database have been attacked. It's some sort of a pride to them.
I see.
So there was definitely political motive was the underlying motivation, right?
But I also found out that these hackers, in the dark web scene, the underground web, people can buy a lot of hacking tools and a lot of data on many organizations easily. Even create a
website
attack.
Okay.
It's called dark web. It's like a market underground where people or hackers can buy tools easily or database.
When you say tools, are you talking about software or hardware?
I think it's the software.
Okay.
I'm trying to understand, because this rootkit information, this hacker group information that was presented to us, they are targeting specifically Muslim nations. Did Kaspersky explain further in terms of why they're targeting Muslim nations?
Based on report released by Kaspersky, this group of hackers was active since October and November last year. That is after the Hamas attack on Israel. So since then, they've shown their support towards Israel and has been attacking Muslim countries like Qatar, Palestine, Malaysia, or even France.
Were there any other hacker groups that was also brought to light?
There wasn't any, but I think there are a lot of other groups of hackers because this hacker group, they have a lot of names and it's hard to track them and pinpoint where they are. But the rootkit, according to Kaspersky, they were traced in the Middle East, somewhere in the Middle East.
Right.
They've been operating from there.
The origins are.
I'm not sure of the origin, but they've been operating from the Middle East countries.
Right. Okay. Azrul, I just want to also understand this in terms of the infrastructure that goes behind, all this firewall that we put up. There are also allegations that say all these cyber attacks come from the cybersecurity institutions out there already.
Insider job.
Yes, these are allegations, of course. What do you make of that?
Well, I cannot deny on that fact, but I cannot confirm that as well.
Okay.
Yeah, the possibility is there. You know, all these threats and attacks might come from the internal, from the inside of the organization itself. So for me, it doesn't matter. Yeah, the most important part here is the governance. Like I said earlier, the governance of the data and how you handle those data in the servers. Because if you say about the technology, I mean technical, right? Technology is improving year by year, day by day. Right? We cannot catch up. So the best mechanism in cyber attack is actually ourselves. So if you are an organization, the organization needs to know the people who is operating the cyber security, and do some measures to make the awareness to everybody in the organization, and so that we don't rely 100% to the technology.
This actually somehow reminds me of a Hollywood movie, Catch Me If You Can, Leonardo DiCaprio and Tom Hanks, right? So at the end of the movie, basically, the Leonardo's character, who was once a con man, he was then absorbed into, I think it was the FBI's program to catch conmen just like himself. So how true is it that it takes, in this case, in the context of cybersecurity, how true is it then that it takes a thief to catch a thief?
Well, you can use thief to catch thief, of course, but being a real thief, they also upgrade their so-called modus operandi, right? So for any SOPs or any processes that we define in a particular organization, there must be a loophole. And with the rise of the technology, with the improvement of the technology today, the thief is getting cleverer and cleverer.
Yeah.
So that's why I said the most important thing that we need to be up to date with the latest method of their modus operandi, and try to prevent, put some preventive measurement in whatever SOPs or processes in cybersecurity.
So always a step ahead of the
Correct.
bad guys.
Correct. You need to be 10 or 20 steps ahead.
Right.
of
That's
these guys.
ideal, obviously. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think outside of this interview, you mentioned that when it concerns cybersecurity teams, you actually have to be, active 24/7.
Correct.
And earlier you mentioned about response times needs to be fast. How fast must you be within the next minute?
Immediate.
Okay.
Immediate. The monitoring mechanism doesn't have to be people. There's a lot of tools out there in cybersecurity, like can be used to monitor the networks, the system journey and all that. So we can use those tools, but the question is it sufficient? So those kind of things needs to be considered by the cybersecurity team in each organization, especially government agencies, because government agencies they have our data, public data. So if those data is being leaked, it involves everybody in Malaysia.
Right. Follow up to that. How do you think cybersecurity Malaysia has fared so far in the past year in terms of addressing, even simple attacks?
They are working hard as well. To learn the latest technology, to learn the latest threat. So they have the mechanism also to absorb the threat and to respond to the threat. But that one is in government perspective lah. But the thing is now, if you see like a Rukit, right, Rukit and other hackers group, they are targeting also the organization like not related to the government. For example, banking. Banks, telecommunications, organization that holds data of the people of Malaysia. So these are the type of organization that the hackers group is very, very interested on.
Anyway, we also have a separate interview with Kaspersky following up to the initial report that they shared with New Straits Times, in particular trying to understand how countries such as Malaysia and international organizations can work together to address the increasing threat of cyber attacks. Let's roll that clip.
So to be honest, we do not have the first-hand data that they have managed to extract and transfer and exfiltrate from the targets, from the victims. However, just by the nature, modus operandi of this group called Rootkit, they are likely not driven by the intelligence interests here. They are more interested in just traditional activism, which is exposure of the entities, of the governments, of the companies that they may not like for some reason. And they're doing this not to earn money, but just to put more public pressure on the government, on the private companies, in order to push their political agenda along the way. This is a big difference from the state-sponsored attackers, and I don't think this is intelligence operation. Why? Because typically state-sponsored attackers and intelligence operations, they are not really publishing anything. So you may not even know about their existence for years. And it's a common thing. So their operations are very covert. So they don't expose any victims. They don't leak information typically. They only use it for their own processing, analysis, kind of internal consumption, delivering to their own stakeholders, but they don't usually do such public activities such as this Rootkit group. They don't even have a name. If you ask me, like we never had any state actor like claiming such name, any name actually, and being vocal about what they did. So here, to the contrary, we see that there's a group that was founded somewhere maybe end of October, beginning of November, and they claim this name Rootkit. And they are quite vocal about what they do. They send alerts before they start, and then they share some kind of proofs of the hacks in their Telegram channels to confirm that this operation was successful. So this is a sign of a political activism rather than a kind of a cyber espionage campaign. In modern days, attribution of cyber attacks is merely impossible, and you can't rely on any fact of attribution, in fact, because it's really hard to just look at the data and say like this is true, this is genuine, and this is forged and faked. So it can be any facts, any artifacts that are left by the activity of the group. They can all be put there on purpose to maybe frame somebody else. So what we have observed so far is the activity time. So if you put down all of the, I'm sorry, if you put down all of the timestamps of the messages on the Telegram channel, for example, and you try and sort it by the hour of day, you will see that there are certain hours that are prevalent among others, and this is where you can judge about the the time zone, possible time zone of the threat actor. So in this case, we did conclude that it might be a Middle Eastern time zone, about UTC +3, maybe ±1 hour or so. Depends on when they start working, when they go to bed. But it clearly shows that they're on this side of the planet and likely among the Middle Eastern countries. Now, as for the defense, and this is what I think believe is most important, is to focus on defense rather than on attribution in this particular case. Although we have seen this group being really interested in compromising and exposing more of countries where Muslims live, like starting from Iran, Lebanon, Qatar. Then they expanded. They even hit for some reason France, and then they switched to Malaysia. And just yesterday, I've seen that they have published the announcement that they are going to attack Saudi Arabia. They somehow removed that post quickly. Maybe that was not a very promising or successful operation, but they did claim that, and they keep doing so. So does it tell us that they are really attacking Muslim countries because they're anti-Muslim? Maybe, or maybe not. Maybe somebody wants to make it look so. Just because this game in cyber is very complicated, you can't really rely on any information, because it can be a way to just enrage Muslims and try them do some sort of retaliation. This is why we believe it's most important really not to fall into the trap of this complicated, sophisticated game, but rather focus on your own defense. Now, speaking of how to protect from such attacks, usually what they do is they explore how a particular victim or target is exposed on the internet. So starting from the websites that the company or organization may own, going through maybe email service, trying to map maybe cloud infrastructure, see collect possible contact addresses of the employees that are exposed on the internet, maybe through LinkedIn, through Facebook, through other means, social networks, and maybe official websites. So they collect all the information, how they can reach out to particular employees of the entity, and then they may try and attack by spreading passwords, for example, for particular, let's say, login page, for example, authorization page. And then they may use these logins and try to brute force passwords. That's one of the way. Another way is to try and infect individual users by sending them an email which may contain malware or may lead to a phishing page where they may provide their credentials by logging into what they believe to be, let's say, a social media page or some other resource, exposing their passwords by typing it in the browser on the phishing page. Other means is trying to find breaches through vulnerabilities that may exist on the websites and services that belong to the target. So they for that use specialized scanners. They may try and fingerprint the version of the software that is used, and can research whether there is a known vulnerability for that software, maybe a code that can help them exploit that vulnerability and easily get access to the service. So these are a variety of tools and methods that attackers can use in order to compromise the organization.
All right. Following up to that, I just want to understand this, maybe Izwan, from the media's perspective, what role do you see the government agencies or regulatory bodies can put in effort in terms of playing this more robust role in fostering our cybersecurity measures?
I think data in relation to the public is very important, and the public can easily lose trust or confidence if they keep seeing data are being hacked from time to time. Because now we have Padu, and the government need to show that they have all the technology and expertise in place so that they can gain the trust from the people to give their data. Because if not, the bad guys will always be ahead of us. I mean, the weakest link in any companies or government is the people itself. Maybe as workers, as public employers, we didn't realize what we are seeing on the internet or in our emails that we just click, which actually coming from the hackers.
Because some of the messages are really intuitive, right? Like they know, I mean, they really sound like humans, or they don't sound like bots at all. And it kind of draws you into clicking those phishing links and stuff like that. And also in relation to data breaches, we've been hearing a lot of scam reports, people being scammed just by clicking a link in a message saying that they are called by LHDN, because sometimes you're in a state of panic, right? So you just follow sahaja. So maybe MCCA, you have a rule of thumb that you want to share with our audience?
Yeah, first thing first, social media. Okay, why, as you said, okay, the messages from the bad guys look so real, and we thought, oh, this is it, because they have already studied our behavior. Where they studied our behavior is from the social media, from the postings. Every day we do postings in Instagram, in TikTok, in Facebook. Actually, there are somebody out there is learning on our behavior. Whether they do it manually or they have some kind of tools or system to do that, I don't know. Don't post any sensitive data. For example, simple as a wedding anniversary, right? When you during your wedding anniversary, you will post in TikTok or Instagram or Facebook, right? So the date of your anniversary, sometimes people use the date for passwords. Your children's birthday, for example, you wish birthday to your children's in your social media. So sometimes people use the birthday of your kids as their passwords. Small things like that. So we need to very careful in sharing those kind of data.
Since you raised it, I'm also considering, because sometimes we don't attentively share our, wedding anniversaries, birthdays or whatever, but when we sign up with, let's say for instance, like a particular social networking platform, right, like Facebook ke apa kan, we can, when we register, we put our date of birth there, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes we get that anniversary. So from the back end, they can already source that information. So how?
For example, Instagram or Facebook lah. Facebook, they do ask about some of our personal information, including our birthday. Yeah, but I think Facebook as a giant in the industry, they have a proper governance as well in keeping the sensitive data of their customers. So I think we don't have to worry so much about that. Between us and Facebook or Instagram, I don't think we
Or
need
any
to.
other platforms that you've signed a disclaimer of sorts.
But if the platform is not you can sense lah. You can sense the platform. For example, sometimes suddenly you get email, give you links to ask your personal information. Sometimes they do fake competition as well, or they do some offer you some prizes suddenly. So you need to really be aware of those tactics. Don't click in any suspicious link. That is the best that we could do lah.
Would you advise against being part of trends? So, for instance, this discussion brought me back to the Facebook 10-year challenge, if you've ever heard of it.
Yes.
And people were
yes.
using the hashtag
Yes.
10-year
Yes.
challenge. And it became a trend. It seemed somewhat harmless, but I think there were concerns after that it
Yes.
was one way of breaching data.
Yes.
Yeah.
So actually, those kind of trends
Mhm.
is actually being used to collect data from us.
Right.
In TikTok, you can point the camera towards your face, and then you can see your face in the next 20 years. Your old version.
Yeah.
So
Filters and all those sorts of things. Yeah.
we
No, I
don't
never
know.
do that though, because I just don't want to see myself old. Anyway.
We never know. Those face. Let's say, myself when I become 60 years old, so somebody is keeping it actually.
Right.
Yeah.
They're studying your face. Are you saying? I mean, they're keeping you
Yeah.
for some later use.
Yeah. We don't know when they will use it or how they're gonna use it, but for sure somebody is keeping it.
These were the risks that a lot of groups, or at least cybersecurity groups, or consumer groups, were trying to say, like, be very wary which platform you share your image with, because
Yes.
they have the rights to also republish or reuse that image, but in a different locality. You might not even know. So
Sometimes they put the terms and condition there, and then we willingly tick without reading.
Right. Right.
Okay, we've come to the end of our segment, but is there anything else that our guests would like to share?
Normally people get hacked, become victims of scams, for example. It's because of greed. Some people fall into promises of, if you click on this you get certain amount of money, gifts or something. Okay, you need to be more vigilant. Sometimes you may receive notice from Facebook, but it is actually not Facebook. If you look at the URL, like let's say someone is trying to change your password.
Right.
Yeah. Did you change your password recently? If you click on that, you are compromised because you know that you didn't change your password recently, and if you get such message, and maybe you will be compromised.
I just want to emphasize that the best mechanism is still ourselves. Okay, because MCCA stands for Malaysia Cyber Consumer Association, so we care about the cyber consumers. So our perspective is always about consumers. So I would like to advise the consumers, cyber consumers out there, to be very careful in sharing personal data, in using unauthorized apps, and also to participate in whatever trends in social media like we discussed just now. So I would like to emphasize again, the best defense mechanism in cyberspace is ourselves. It's not entirely about technology.
All right, that wraps up our particular segment. Now we're going to move into the next topic of interest, in which we were going to be talking about the rice industry in Malaysia. Who here doesn't like rice?
We all like
Non-rice eater here.
Or maybe quinoa. All right, Hazin, maybe you want to take the floor?
Sure, yeah. See, the thing is about this Madani white rice proposal is that it has led to more questions than answers at this particular juncture because of some communication breakdown, let's put it that way, between the interested stakeholders involved. And I'm, of course, alluding to NACOL and the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security. NACOL, right, which the name itself suggests it has to address the cost of living issues and food security, and they're supposed to be the extension of the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security, or MAFS for short. And so the communication breakdown somewhat is a reference to the revision of, number one, to set a standard price for how much they're going to sell this Madani white rice for, and two, how they're going to package the rice, since it's going to be single grade. Now, single grade here means it's basically just one type of white rice being sold, packaged as Madani white rice, but will involve a mix of all the separate different types of grains of white rice. And this somewhat doesn't sit well with, understandably so, with some of the local farmers, and we have most of our farmers up in the north in Kedah, and groups like MADA, like Besawa, groups that take care of the welfare of farmers, are saying that this is not feasible. This single grade white rice, being packaged and sold like this is not feasible. Number one, because they want to preserve the integrity of local white rice grains, or local rice grains. And so when you have this single grade being packaged, where you have a mix of different types of grains being all sort of chucked into, as one, then you take away the identity of the local white rice.
This concept of Malaysia Madani white rice came about first, and a price was already stated, in which for every 10 kilograms of the Malaysia Madani white rice, it's supposed to be retailed at 30 ringgit. And there was also some sort of information in terms of it's going to be a single grade, as you mentioned. However, stakeholders are looking at how they're going to rationalize this, because if this Malaysia Madani white rice is going to take effect, we need to look into the local white rice supply, not the imported ones. It's just, I'm very curious how this would fare. Again, like we mentioned, you gotta accommodate the farmers, but we also have to accommodate consumers.
Yep.
So where does that leave us, right? And for that, we have Datuk Ameer Ali Mydin himself, who is also a NACOL member and the managing director for Mydin, to talk about this particular plight.
Very good morning, Datuk.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being on Beyond the Headlines.
It's an honor.
Yeah. Datuk, okay, I want to ask you first, we're talking about this whole Malaysia Madani white rice situation. However, the rice plight that Malaysia has been facing is an ongoing one. I think in the 80s or 90s, we've been talking about, expanding the supply to 70% or 80%, but where are we at right now?
You must remember, we can do away with a lot of things, but when we talk about food security, basically it is rice, flour. No sugar is okay. You don't die if there's no sugar. But when you have no rice, it becomes a problem. So, numbers that are being given out there is that we have 62% capacity in terms of 100% requirement to 62%. I questioned that in the first place because actually it's less than 50%. You must remember.
In terms of yield or in terms of
no, it's not the yield part.
Okay.
If we need 1,000 ton per day for the population of 32 plus 3 million foreigners, okay? If we need X value, we are only able to supply 62%. But actually, the real amount that we can supply is about less than 50%. Because remember, you produce 62%, but then you have some part that goes to Dadak, some part that goes to Bihun. So end of the day, you end up with only 50%.
Less than that, like
less
mentioned.
than that,
Okay.
So now we don't have the capacity as a country to fulfill the needs. So of course, there comes the imported rice, and which is unfortunately solely controlled by Beras, a monopoly in itself, created by the government for reasons best known to them.
Nothing has been confirmed yet, and there's a deadline that is extended within NACO and also the Ministry for Agriculture in terms of coming up with how they're going to support this Madani white rice package, right? And the deadline is on February 20th. Since Friday, you are a NACO member yourself. What sort of information have you gathered on your end? Also, because you are also part of the stakeholders in the supply chain.
To make a long story short, okay, I think the first is there was a NACO meeting, of course, with meetings as usual, the minister, the stakeholders bring up their issues, their challenges, what can be done, what cannot be done. And after hearing feedback from the Ministry of Agriculture, from retailers like me, from rice millers and producers, I think in his wisdom, the Prime Minister knows that this is a complex situation. It's not some, unfortunately, YB Datuk Syed Hussein, I will use the word jump the gun probably by making the announcement without maybe in his own good intentions. His intentions are very noble, and he's not wrong, seriously, because availability of white rice at 26 ringgit is minimal in the market. I guess after his consultation with certain stakeholders, he thought if we make it 30 ringgit, probably bring it up higher, then we probably have more availability. The question is of availability, right, not price. But there are many issues here. I think the first part of him saying 26 to 30, maknanya harga akan naik, prices go up. The second more controversial or more difficult to do is he want to standardize the rice. That means even the imported rice, which is being sold at 38, 39, 40, different brand, different kind of marketing strategy, he wants that to be brought up to 30. Which is a no-no, obviously.
Yeah, because the rationality of it is like, are you going to subsidize the extra
How do you, basically imported rice controlled by Beras lah.
Right.
Beras currently sells at 32 ringgit for 50 kilo bag. Right? So if millers buy the 50 kilo bag at 32, by the time they process it, packaging, logistic costs, from Beras to the miller to the wholesaler to whoever, all that will probably cost about 4 to 5 ringgit. So the 32 automatically becomes 36, 37. Right? Then it goes in the market at different branding, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42. So that's how it happens, what's happening now. So to expect something that's being sold at 38, you probably have to tell Beras to give it out at 26 or at some 27. Then only people can sell at 30. So somebody got to subsidize Beras pula, which is a no-no, because the government overarching policy has always been
targeted.
Cut down on subsidy, give targeted subsidy. I think this is the main issue here. Whether the government should actually remove price control.
Understood.
This is difficult for government to swallow, but I think the Prime Minister understands this, that if we remove price control, then what will happen? The white rice, the local white rice, which is at 26, will go up. It will go up to probably 36. The imported rice, which is being sold at 40, 42, with this kind of pressure, there, it might go down slightly, or it might even go higher. Market, we don't interpret market. So what happens to the B40s, the M40s, and all this? Well, obviously, the government is already giving cash
aids
to the B40s and some of the M40s. They call it Maisara, or they want to call it Maikasih, they want to call it STR, Sumbangan Tunai Rahmah, which if you look at numbers seriously, A household of 5 people, they only eat 20 kilos of rice a month, right? So if the rice is 26, which you can't get, but let's say even if the rice you supposed to get at 26, and let's say for whatever purpose it goes up to 36, a $10 increase, right? A household of 5 will require 20 ringgit extra per month, right? If the government decides to subsidize 1 million household, it's only going to cost them $20 million. If you want to subsidize 2 million households, it only costs them $40 million. For a year, it comes to less than $500 million.
It's still relatively low in
I
a
mean,
sense.
I'm not saying $500 million is small change, right? But for the government, it's small change compared to not having availability. The B40s are already paying 38, 40 ringgit now, right? By going this way, at least they get the money and they can buy the 38, 40 ringgit, right? Actually, they're actually getting at 26 because they're getting the cash now. This is the correct approach. I think the government must have the political will, you know, to go ahead and announce. Orang akan marah. People get angry, of course, obviously. The opposition obviously will take an issue. Government said, you know, things will go down, but, you know, see the issue with this is, of course, whenever the government narrative is the problem. The government says, now they just gave 2,000 ringgit to the civil servant. They said, okay, I know you all have issues, I give it 2,000. What the government need to say is that, I'm giving you the 2,000 ringgit because I've removed price control of rice. I've removed price control of sugar. So I know it's going to cost you extra 20 ringgit because of the rice. It's going to cost you extra 2 ringgit if I remove sugar, and extra another 4 ringgit if I remove the cooking oil, right? Then people will understand better.
The idea of a single category of white rice is has not been confirmed. But you know, the talks or the debate surrounding this single category of white rice is that it will hurt farmers. What are your thoughts on this?
No, I think it's not that way. It's not that way. Okay, why would a single category of rice hurt farmers? You know, it will hurt the importers because the importers are the one bringing the rice. It will hurt burners. Why will it hurt farmers? I think the issue is you must understand first the main thing, right? At that so-called, it's a price. It's a price story. It's nothing to do with whether it's single, multiple, nothing.
Right.
Our YB side, Hussein, is suggesting a 30 ringgit Beras Madani. To get a 30 ringgit Beras Madani, if you work backwards, harga padi, the price that you need to pay the farmers, has to be 1,003. So 1,003 plus the brokerage, logistic 1,004, a conversion rate of 67. You get the dada, you get the bihun. You know, it's complicated, but all end, as you come to the end, it comes to 30 ringgit. So if you give 1,003 to the paddy farmers, your end product of the packet of Madani 10 kilo rice comes to 29.50. Then we get at 29.50 and we sell at 30 ringgit. Right. I think the more bigger issue is, can you get paddy at 1,003? At the moment, last week, the price of paddy is 1,750.
Wow.
How will YB's suggestion work? It's beyond logic. If you're buying paddy at 1,750, you go to the same conversion, transport, packaging, you know, padi nak jadikan beras.
2,000.
Right? No, it comes to $36.
Per 10 kg.
For 10 kg.
Okay,
So
okay.
1,007, right? It comes to 3,006, so it comes to 36. So now how are we going to get 30 when the costing comes up to 36? I think that's the first point.
Okay.
I think the second more important point, which is raised by the paddy farmers, is that the market internationally, if you go to Thailand, right, is $615 per metric ton. Anyway, to convert it to ringgit, if you bring rice from Thailand, if I was allowed to import tomorrow, example, my cost of rice from Thailand to here will be 34 to 36 ringgit, right? So why are we depriving? See, this 34, 36 comes to that 1,750.
Right.
Sama kan? It's about the same, right? So why are we depriving our paddy farmers you're paying them 1,003 when the market is 1,750. And the paddy farmers are asking the same question. Pay us what is market. And the millers are paying 1,750. No choice, right? So they pay 1,750, it comes to 36. That's why they say they're changing packaging. The local rice is actually being sold as imported rice, which is illegal, which is wrong. But tell us what to do. I think the millers will say, tell us what to do. I'm paying 1,750, right? Okay. We all agree that the 200,000 paddy farmers are the poorest lot. Miskin tegak. Orang susah. We all say that the farmers are the poorest in Malaysia in terms of the income level, right? Okay. Why? It's a country of 32 plus 3, 35 million people asking the farmers to subsidize them. Shouldn't it be the other way?
Yeah.
Shouldn't we allow the paddy farmers to increase the price to 1,750? Correct? The rice goes out at $36 or $38. Me and you, who can afford to pay the $36, $38, pay what is market price. And those who can't afford it, the so-called the B40s, the M40s, the government give a subsidy.
But why do you think there's still such a resistance? Because again, the rate of 10 kilograms for beras tempatan at 26 ringgit per 10 kilo tu it's the price is since 2008.
The price is in 2008. It doesn't make sense anymore. The government must have the willpower, the political will to say, come on, let's be fair. I think even the PM said, whatever we decide, we have to be fair to everybody. There are paddy farmers, 200,000 of them. The poorest lot, that's a population, the rakyat of 32, 35 million. The only seriousness is the government, who's not taking the decision that we will remove, kita akan apungkan harga beras. Remove. People get angry all the time. Alright. People always think of themselves. What will happen to me? You know, rice prices going up. See, currently the thinking is like this. They say, if the price of rice from 26, which is not available in the first place, goes to 36, harga nasi kandar akan naik. Tell me why. The nasi kandar is not getting rice at 26. He's still buying at 36 anyway. And there are laws in Malaysia that the KPDN can go and check. Why did you increase your price? Because you are not buying rice at 26, you are buying at 38. Nobody is getting rice at 26. So what is the hue and cry about? The only person who will make a lot of noise is the opposition. But that is their job, to make noise. The empty vessels make the most noise.
But surely a smart one though.
No, because you see, why harp on something when it's not available? Why harp on something when you're actually paying higher? You say, I'm not getting, but you are still paying at 38. You are paying 38.
This is your whole reasoning about, actually kita dah tak ada beras 26 ringgit tu.
Tak ada. It's the same reasoning that YB side Datuk Sri is saying, but the issue with his calculation is that he's trying to maintain harga beras padi tu 1,300, 1,003, which I don't agree, because the market is 1,750, right?
To make it more competitive, maybe bring it up to 1,005,
No,
1,006
no, we don't do those kind of things.
Okay.
You bring it 1,500, it's another price control. You bring it 1,600, let the market decide.
The whole conundrum that we're facing here right now is because, like, you know, we've got multiple stakeholders in terms of in terms of Malaysia's rice supply chain. On one side, they're saying that we have to also consider what, you know, our local paddy farmers must live up to, because existingly, as I mentioned before this, the price or the cost for local white rice is at 26 ringgit per 10 kilos, and that's since 2008. And of course, we know that the cost of living has, risen. And because Malaysia Madani white rice also concerns single grade, right?
And this has been raised by MADA, the MADA chairman, Datuk Dr. Ismail Saleh, recently raised this. And he says it's just not feasible, especially if we're going to mix it with some imported rice, because obviously...
Actually, I was made to understand that mixing the local white rice and the imported white rice is also against the law.
Somewhat, yeah. And this is some of the concerns that he's raised. It's one, he says it's not even allowed based on our laws, and two, because it takes away the identity of our local white rice grains here, produced especially by our local farmers. So these are the things that they've brought up so far. And so that's on one end of the supply chain. You've got the producers, the farmers, which to me, if you ask, will be one of the most, if not the most important stakeholder here, because without them, we wouldn't have this food security. In this sense, rice is the most staple grain in Asia, not just our country. But the other thing is also without a good solution in regard to the price, then we're still going to be faced with this dilemma, because, as you stated, the price of rice has stayed at 26 per 10 kilograms since 2008, and that's over a good decade ago. And this is not caught on with the increasing price of living, and and we're not even talking about the cost of operation for farmers to keep production going year in, year out. The other thing is, on one hand, if you want to keep the farmers happy and raise the purchase price of paddy, of rice, that's one thing. But on the other end, if you raise the purchase price to a certain rate, then consumers are not going to be happy, because that means that the retail price of rice from 26 ringgit per 10 kilogram to, say, I think what MADA is trying to, and what the consensus is, that they're trying to raise it to at least 30 ringgit per 10 kilograms. That's not going to sit well with consumers, especially with the lower income groups, where obviously they want to get it as cheap as possible, being, rice being the most staple grain that everyone eats here. I don't think in Malaysia, I can't think of perhaps maybe one friend of mine, but apart from her, I think everyone else enjoys their rice pretty much on a daily basis. So, however you go about it, we will find ourselves in a bit of a situation, a bit of a dilemma. And it has to come down to this discussion between NACOL and MAFS to sort this out. Because if this prolongs, we are going to continue to see. In fact, I even think that it's not an exaggeration if one day you would have protests from farmers protesting about, not this issue not being taken care of.
I mean, probably we're going to be seeing our farmers taking up to the government, similarly like how they've done so in France, right?
I don't think that's a stretch, really, to say that if it comes to a point where they're not this situation not handled properly, and the government cannot come to a conclusive solution. That's not a stretch at all. I think we are going to see some sort of protest from the farmers, especially.
All right, that's all the time we have for this particular episode. Here, I would like to thank again my co-host first, Hazwin Hassan, for being in this particular session with me. Thank you, Hazwin.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
I also want to thank our guest, Izwan, for being on set. Thank you for sharing your report with Kaspersky.
You're welcome, Amalina, for inviting.
Thank you. As well as Azrul from MCCA. Thank you so much for sharing your expert insights.
No problem. Thank you for inviting.
And to our audience, if you like this particular episode, hit that like button, comment, and if you haven't already, subscribe to our channel. Please also turn on the notification bell if you want to get more from Beyond the Headlines, as well as other latest updates from NST Online. My name is Amalina Kamal, and on behalf of my panel here that I have on set, I would like to say thank you. I'll see you next week.